Hello, I'm Harry Stachini and you are listening to the Staff Room Podcast, the show where each week I share anonymous stories from teachers who are overworked, underpaid and close to a mental breakdown. So think of it as teacher therapy, as they remind us of all the troublemakers, class clowns and the flat-out criminals we all remember from school. So join me and my guests and hear what your teachers really have to say. And we're off, episode number 8 of the Staff Room Podcast. How's it going, everyone? You all right? I mean, I say this every week, and like as if you're in the room with me. And I've had a few people actually get back to me and say, yeah, I'm doing all right. I actually had someone a couple of weeks ago, I think it was mentioned about wherever you listen to your podcasts. You know, for me, it tends to be in the car or if I'm like on the move, you know, whether walking or whatever. But I said, I find it strange when people just tend to listen to them in the lounge as they sit on the sofa and just stare at a wall. And I had a few people get in touch with me and say that that's the way they do it. And, you know, it felt like that was the first time someone had answered me during the intro when I'm just having a chat to you. But yeah, I do genuinely hope everyone is doing all right. And, you know, if you want to let me know what you're getting up to, by all means. I say the same thing every time I go on stage. It's just, how are you doing? You all right? And I'll be honest, when I'm doing that, it's I don't really care, because even if you turned around and was like, no, I'm not doing all right, I'd be like, great, well, I'm still going to stand here for 20 minutes and talk to you because I want to earn me money. So, you know, if a room full of people just went, no, we're awful, I'd say, right, well, I've got 20 minutes to try and improve that. Or, you know, I take it to another level where it's even worse. I don't know. But if you're doing all right, you know, that's good to hear. I mean, I'm all right. I'm on half term at this moment in time, so I've just been. I've not been doing much really. I've been walking the dog a fair bit early in the mornings, and you know, I'm new to the dog world, right? Okay, because I got a dog a year ago. Well, my girlfriend got a dog a year ago. I just came as part of like the package, I suppose. And for those that know me, they will know that this isn't something that I was keen on initially. I wasn't anti-dog. I just didn't want a dog, you know. A lot of responsibility. And now my girlfriend's got one a year on. I'm totally a converted man. Love him to pieces. I can't imagine my life without little Rocket, you know. But we just have a different type of relationship because he's definitely like Poppy. Poppy's like his master, you know what I mean? But I feel like he views me a bit like a stepdad, you know. Like he keeps me close, but, you know, not too close. But yeah, the past week on the half term anyway, I've been taking him out for walks early morning and whatnot, like getting out, you know. And the one thing I realise is when you've got a dog, a lot of people just approach you to come and have a chat. And, you know, my dog chat isn't great. I just tend to ask questions about the dog, and that's like pretty much it. But I keep it basic. Oh, you know, what's his name? How old? Done. Right. Have a nice afternoon. But there are some people that are just horrendous at it, and I've had two incidents this week where. The first one was really early in the morning in a very empty park. I was walking Rocket, right? And I've got to stress how empty this park was. And just as I was going to leave the park, about 200 yards from the exit, this lassie dog came in and came bolting towards Rocket, made like a proper beeline for him. And then shortly followed by the owner, who looked to me like a woman in like the mid-40s. And the dog started saying hello, you know, doing all like the licking and sniffing and all the rest of it. And then the owner, just in an incredibly flat tone, just went, he's just like me, a bit of a stalker. And there was no like irony to what they were saying. And I can't, as I say, stress how empty this park was, because there needed to be, in my opinion, maybe 5 to 8 people there for that to be funny. But the fact it was just me, her, and the 2 dogs, it was uncomfortable. So that's in them situations. I just think why have you made this situation awkward? You know, just ask how the dog is, how old is it, and let's just move on. But I didn't reply. I just left the park, looking at Rocket, thinking, what the fuck did she just say? And then I took the dog out yesterday for a walk, big walk, early start again. Did about 10 miles, right, and. Right towards the end, I bumped into a guy who had a Doberman, right, massive dog, and I got a whippet, right. Rocket's a whippet, so he just like Rocket runs towards every dog just to go and say hello, but this Doberman was massive. So I said to the guy, I said, what's his name? And he went, his name's Floki. And I recognised that from the TV show Vikings. So I was like, all right, yeah, like the Viking name. And he went, yeah, he's a boat builder. not the dog, obviously, the guy he's named after. And I thought, I'm glad you've clarified that for me, mate, because, it's not like I was going to question your dog's carpentry abilities, but just another situation where it's just like, just keep the conversation basic, mate, And that's what I think. If you're good at dog chat, by all means, get involved. But if it's not your forte, which it isn't in my opinion, you just keep it basic. Don't complicate it. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's what happens when you've got no one to hang around with on the half term. You just tend to hang around in parks with your dog, or your girlfriend's dog. A day out with the stepson. That's what I call it. But I hope everyone is doing well. I have got a great episode lined up for you today. My guest is Daisy Earl, who is someone that I've only actually met recently. Unlike most of the guests I've had on, I've known them for a little bit. I've only met Daisy in the past 6 months. I met her through a comedians writing group that she set up through lockdown to try and just help us comedians, bounce around the ideas that we've got instead of just hounding the loved ones that we live with, because it does wear thin eventually, especially with Poppy. If I'm like, what do you think of this? So she heads up this comedians writing group, and we got chatting through that, and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to get Daisy on the show, and it was great to have her on. She is an award-winning comedian. She started comedy back in 2013 and racked up quite a few awards within a very short space of time. She won the Scottish Comedian of the Year. She was Chortle Best Newcomer. She was nominated for the Leicester Mercury Award, which is like a massive award. And she did all of that within 3 years of starting. Since then, she's gone on to perform at Fringes in Adelaide and at Edinburgh, and has supported Tom Stade on tour. So it was really, really great to have her on and have a chat with her, because fascinating and very, very funny. She's actually the first guest I've had on who went to private school as well, which is an interesting one, because she kind of talks about within the episode what her experience was of that, and growing up and realising your privilege as you're getting older, and just, how that feels and looks and all the rest of it. She also shares within the episode some stories about the teachers that she can remember from school, and all a little bit traumatic. And I feel like it definitely goes a long way to explain her feelings towards teachers now, because the story that I go over in today's episode as coming from a teacher who didn't plan to be a teacher in life. Like, they've just ended up in a classroom, and they're sharing a story about a lad they had to work with in a 2-to-1 environment. So 2 members of staff to 1 student, who was a bit of a handful. And as I get into the story, Daisy makes her feelings known quite clearly very early on, what she feels about this teacher. And it makes for entertaining listening. I can promise you that. I've also wanted to get Daisy on the show as well, because a teacher of hers a few weeks ago now actually sent me a story from Daisy's school days about Daisy. So I thought this would be great. I can get Daisy on. I can surprise her with that. So you'll also hear that within the episode. And, you're seeing both sides of Daisy. You're seeing this nice side, and then you're seeing a side that, I would say doesn't really give a shit. And it's a fun listen. I mean, it's entertaining, and it was great having her on the show. So let's just jump into this week's episode. This is me, Daisy Earl, and a teacher who never really planned to become a teacher. Enjoy. I'm excited the fact you're moving to Manchester, because Jack Leto is moving up here as well. Moving down here, should I say. He's coming from Hull. But yeah, there's loads to do in Manchester, and the comedy clubs up here are great. I actually run a couple of nights, so if you want to come and do some new material at any point, just let me know.
I would absolutely love that. And also I will be, and I don't want to put on pressure or like play the friend card, but see, now I know you run nights. If you don't book me, wow. Like, look forward to writing group, because
yeah,
it's going to be grim.
This week, Harry. I'm still in the waiting room.
We're like, God, it's really weird, but we're actually full now, and it's 19 people capacity, and Harry joined last. So
you put me in a breakout room on my own.
You'll be out. So,
so you can have a long hard look at yourself, Harry, and just figure out what you want. I've got to say that them writing groups, because Jack Leto put me onto that. Was that and at first I was thinking, I don't know how this is going to work, but I've proper enjoyed them. It's been really nice to get to know people. But I don't know if your experience of it has been like it's gone above and beyond what you thought it was going to be, because it definitely has for me. I didn't think it would be as useful and as fun as it is.
Yeah, no, I love it. But I started it only with the expectation really of like, because this winter was so shit, I just wanted somewhere to like where comedy existed and like it existed every week where you could like write with people. But I see myself as like a benevolent dictator because I was very strict from the start in terms of like the rules. So like everyone has to be nice, everyone has to be supportive. You can't, because I've been in too many backstage areas where comedians start trying to outdo each other and then it's not fun. So I think having rules like you're not allowed to talk about the industry, you have to say something positive. It means, and most people would do it naturally, but it just means that you've got that like expectation. So
that sets a tone.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
And that, because otherwise I just find I hate showing off, and that was the only thing I didn't want to happen in writing group was showing off, because
even though that's what we're professionals at doing, like, is to go on stage and essentially show off.
Yeah, but on stage is great. I love comedians in that comedy club environment. I embrace showing off.
Okay.
If you do it in real life to me, I'm like, oh, you're a sociopath. I can't cope with it, because I'm more Scottish than I am English, like, because my mum's Scottish, my dad's half. And in Scotland, showing off, I think, is not encouraged. And that is something I like. I think that the English need to catch up in that sense, because
I'm actually half Scottish myself, right? Because my dad was born in Stirling, right?
Nice. That's why we get on.
Yeah. But the idea of not showing off in Scotland, I can totally understand what you mean, because I know we just spoke about the Fringe before, but they're not going to wear that. Only we know that. When I was doing AAA, right? I was emceeing the show, and I had an absolute stinker. Right, my birthday's August 8th, so it was middle of the Fringe. I just turned, I think it was 22 or something like that, and I had a big night out for my birthday, and then I had a show the next day and the day after. And them 2 days were the days that family were coming. And I say family, i.e. my dad, and then like family, friends of family and stuff like that. But I had an absolute stinker, like just absolutely horrendous. I remember there was a guy in the crowd who was wearing a suit, and he was just being a bit awkward. And I said, what you wearing a suit for, mate? And he said, I've just come from work, really plainly. And I didn't... I didn't have anything to say back to him. I just went, yeah, of course you have, yeah. And there was no banter at all. It was awful. And at the end of the gig, we went out for a meal. I didn't want to go. I was hungry, but I didn't want to sit with my family because I knew how shit the gig had been. And my dad was like, come on, we'll get some food. And this family friend put his arm round my shoulder as I sat there. Well, everyone's eating. I've got nothing in front of me apart from a Coca-Cola. And he just said, so is it just a hobby then, comedy? And I remember sitting there thinking, fucking hell, not only am I hungry, but like I'm now filled with anger. But I just had to swallow it. But that was, I'm not going to do the Scottish accent, but yeah, that was a Scottish person telling me, essentially, don't show off.
Don't show off, but that's the thing. But see, that is the opposite though, what I was saying. I was thinking, oh, it's positive that they tell people like that they don't show off, but you're right, they do also tell others not to show off. And that is a proper Scottish, like, see you tried to I see you tried to do a thing there, right? And we've all discussed it. Don't bother. Don't do it again. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's all have dinner. Move on from Harry's wee little episode there.
Yeah. He looked at me like, you're here for a month. Ooh. That was a bit that hurt the most. But yeah, I've since done a gig in front of that person and done very well. So they didn't say that after that second gig, which was quite nice. But
I mean that's a proper compliment. Yeah, when they no longer ask you if it's a hobby. a girl from my school, speaking of school, not that we're speaking of it yet, but I know it's a podcast about school.
Mm-hmm.
A girl from my school who I hadn't seen in years came to see me at the Fringe in 2016. And it's when I had won Scottish Comedian of the Year. So I was doing like the Scottish Comedian Winner show. And she's not someone who kept in touch with me after school because I've never got the impression she likes me that much, but I think she just came, I think sometimes because I was hopeless at school, when I was new to comedy and winning awards, I noticed school friends would come to my shows, and I think it was to reassure them that I wasn't that good because otherwise the matrix of their life had flipped upside down where they're like, hang on a minute, she's useless and she's good at something now. Not possible. Anyway, she came and I was so like, yeah, I'm going to put it in her face. I'm good at something now. I could tell jokes. And I had the worst show of my entire run. And it was a Sunday night and it was only her friend and like, I don't know, 4 other people in the audience. And she was nice, to be fair. Like, she laughed along and she was clearly trying to be supportive. But you know, when you're like, I wanted to rub it in your face.
Yeah.
And I can't.
Yeah, that's brutal. That is brutal.
It was brutal.
I've been buzzing to get you on this, right? One, for the fact I've absolutely loved doing the writing group with you. But 2, now, this is just pure coincidence, but I actually had a teacher of yours send a story in to my podcast.
That is mental. Which teacher?
Well, see, this is what I mean. I don't want to mention their name, but if I said to you, go on.
Yeah. No, well, okay. You give me the clue, and I'll see if I know, and I won't say their real name.
If I said to you something about a Year 11 weekend drama trip to London to go and watch The Woman in Black in the Fortune Theatre, would that?
I know who you mean. This is my all-time favourite teacher, by the way.
Oh right, okay, nice.
I can say it's a she, can't I?
Yeah.
She is my all-time favourite teacher. She was like a game-changing teacher for me because I was about to say I wasn't very bright at school. And then I realised what I meant to say was I'm not very bright generally, end of sentence, but it didn't get better. No, I never thought, like, I'm not stupid, but at school I felt stupid. Like, so because I went to like a selective school, so you have to do like an entrance exam when you're 11. So all the kids that I was at school with were like...
But you passed that, didn't you, then, if you got in?
Yeah, I don't know how, but I did pass that. But then that seemed to annoy my teachers thereafter, that it was like I'd got away with something. Because honestly, I think most of my teachers just thought I was a moron. And even as a child, I could feel that they thought that. Do you know what I mean? And it's not very encouraging when you're like, okay, so, but she was the first teacher who never, ever made me feel like stupid. And she was my drama teacher. Yeah. And it was like drama but like, you know, having to write essays, like there's an English element of drama. She was really, really encouraging and she was really nice. And I hadn't had that. I did have some other nice teachers, but she was uniquely encouraging. And then I think becoming good at drama made me good at other subjects. So then when I left, I got 2 A's and a C, which for me was like an A in drama, an A in classics, and then a C in English language and literature. But for me, that was not what anyone was expecting. And the funny thing was, when I got those relatively good grades, a lot of my teachers, they're surprised at this. They didn't hide from me. They were just like, I actually can't believe that it was like they thought I'd sent someone else into the exam, but we all thought you were an idiot. I was like, I know, it's fun, isn't it? Because we all thought that, and maybe I wasn't. But she was just uniquely nice. And I respond much better to people being nice to me because I maybe like everyone does. If someone tells me, I'm quite simple in that if someone says to me, oh, you're good at something, then I become
good at it. Yeah.
Whereas the minute they go, oh, I don't think you could do that, I go, oh, you're probably right. It's like a lack of confidence that it's quite easy to get me. If they go, I think you're a bit useless, I'll go, thank God you have noticed, because it's quite a relief to me that someone else is saying it.
That's what you're saying there, because I don't think me and you were too dissimilar then at school, because I wasn't massively academic. I tried, but I got told from a young age, Harry's going to do something with his hands, right? That's what's going to happen. And then I mentioned it on the last podcast, but the relief that my mum and dad got when they found out I was dyslexic was like, oh God, there's like a reason for this. So when I was growing up, my dad would always say, whether it be parents' evenings or whatever, just like, yeah, he's dyslexic, Harry, but he doesn't hide behind it. It's like, yeah, but I'm not a fucking paedophile, Dad. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, I struggle with letters, right? But yeah, he doesn't hide behind it, Harry. Look at him. He's dyslexic. Look at him. He's like,
that's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
So
I love that.
Yeah,
love that your dad though was like announcing it for you, like as he walked into rooms.
Oh yeah. Even now, like I've filled out job applications where he's like, put it down if you can. I was like, it hasn't got a box for it, Dad, so I'm just gonna leave it. Okay.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But this teacher, go on. What were you going to say?
No, you go on.
Well, the teacher that sent the story in, it centres around you. Do you remember this trip to go and watch the Women in Black?
I do remember this trip because I was a bit traumatized.
okay, because that kind of features within this.
But I suspect the story that she's told you has been about me and my friend John. So I sat next to John watching The Woman in Black, which, side note, terrifying play. And I bit his finger because basically John was just a mate, but I was making him I was almost forcing a hug out of him because I was so frightened by this play, because it is a frightening play. And then she, the Woman in Black just appeared, and it gave me a fright, and I properly bit his finger. And then I think my teacher, when we all went back to the hotel, I can't remember what she did, but I just remember screaming. I think she gave me a fright again because she was.
They've mentioned in this something about taking you to room 666.
There was I can't remember what happened, but I remember she gave me a fright and she properly got me. And when you get a fright and you're like, I actually think my heart just stopped, because it was a frightening play. And then because she was like a proper joker. I mean, she was a cool teacher. Like, some of my teachers I did not like, but she was properly funny. Like, she was cool. I liked her a lot.
Well, the story that they sent in was filled with a lot of love for you, so I'm glad that that's bringing back some positive memories.
Well, I loved that teacher, so it's mutual, and it's quite unique for me because there are many of my teachers who I look back at as an adult who I don't like.
I know. Well, I was going to say, when I've said to each guest to kind of have a think about their school days, you are by far the first guest I've had who's done the most amount of homework, because the extensive list that you sent me, I spent about 20 minutes reading them, and they're all great. But the one that I thought, Jesus Christ, that seems a bit extreme, when you took a can of pop into school.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so if you could please tell the story, because I found that baffling.
Right, okay. It's because it is baffling. And this is one of those school memories that when I look back as an adult, I think, what was wrong with my teacher? Like, what was going on in her life at that moment that she felt this was appropriate to a 6-year-old? So my first school, so both schools I went to were private schools, not to show off, just, I used to be fancy. And I say used to be because the real world really smacked me in the mouth. But so in the dining room, so you had these long wooden tables. So it's a bit like a small version of Hogwarts, shall we say. And my mum, I was running late that day, and normally you had to bring a bottle of water for your packed lunch. And for whatever reason, maybe my mum just didn't have one, I ended up taking a can of lemonade. Now, my teacher, who I won't name, but I would like to. I didn't like her. I actually looked her up on Facebook and I was really disappointed she was still alive, which really shows that I hold a grudge, because I'm like, that old bitch should be dead by now, but never mind. But anyway, she's
a big listener of the podcast as well. So
oh my God, I know she won't listen to it, but I don't know why I said that. Like, I hope she does listen so I could tell her as an adult, I don't like you. But I had this can of lemonade and she came over and she said, you're not allowed lemonade. You're not allowed a can of drink with your lunch. So I went, oh, sorry, because I didn't have another drink. I thought she was telling me, genuinely thought she was telling me for future reference. So then I opened the drink and she lost her mind. And she was like, I just remember her, like the whole dining room stopping talking while she told me off. And then she made me stand on the dining room table. So like it was this big wooden table. It was like prison. Do you mean? Because
so
all the
bizarre.
other kids are like still eating their lunch. And the thing is, children normally like make fun of each other. But the punishment was so harsh, proportionate to what I had done, that the other children weren't even making fun of me. They were just looking at me like, this is a bit much, isn't it?
It's a kind of 7-Up, love. Calm down. Right.
Yeah. So I stood on the table and then eventually cried, and then everyone is looking at me, but again they're not even making fun of me, because children don't enjoy watching other children get ritually humiliated when they're 6. So I cried, and then the rest of the day I just didn't say anything. And then my dad came to pick me up from school, and I went to my dad and I cried, and I was like, you know, Mrs. So-and-so told him the story, said she made me stand on the table and that I cried in front of everyone and I was embarrassed. And my dad lost his mind. But like, you know, when you're a kid and you had no idea that your dad was capable of that level of anger, or that you could like set him on someone. Because my dad is like this like tall, quite intimidating, like he's quite a big man, and he's normally very quiet and he doesn't like people. So
can I just say, every time you've mentioned your dad in them writing groups, in my mind I've got Bryan Cranston. Right? So that's who I think your dad looks like.
But he's very quiet. And as a kid, that I remember as a child, I love my dad, obviously, but my dad was so different with me as he was with other people, because he's not really a people person. So I remember him speaking like on his work phone in the car, and he'd be quite grumpy. And then as soon as it hung up, he'd be like, and hello, and how are you today? And what have you been doing, my little poppet? Like, he loved me, but he just wasn't big on other people. So anyway, I went outside and I cried and I told my dad what happened. And I remember my dad like storming into school and telling I just remember him doing this really cool thing where he wanted to see the headmaster, and the secretary being like, oh sorry, he's busy at the moment, and dad just going, not anymore, and like opened his door like he won't be busy. And he was like, in this really quiet but very angry way, told the headmaster that he had to apologize to me, because he started apologizing to my dad, and he was like, you don't need to apologize to me, like apologize to my daughter for what's happened here. And I just remember like being this little child and a headmaster being like, I'm really sorry about what happened today, we should look into this, you know, like the kind of thing they say. And then him saying to my dad something like the teacher would be handled or dealt with, or that there would be a discussion.
We'll have them shot in the morning.
I mean, I think my dad was so angry. That was partly what I was hoping for. I was like, oh God, I hope he gets a shot.
Yeah.
But
just tied to the climbing frame.
Yeah. And then I'd have loved it. And then bless my dad, he took me home and we stopped at the newsagents. And I just remember my dad, normally he was quite strict. So when we stopped at the newsagents, if we ever got sweets, you got like 10p and that was it. And that day I got £1, but bear in mind they were penny sweets. That's like 100 Like, you could have the time of your life on £1 back then.
Like Jeff
like,
Bezos, just buy whatever you want.
Made it rain.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the funny thing is, as a kid, you're quite resilient, because by the time I got home, I'd forgotten about it because I had sweets. So I was like, oh, well, pretty good day. Watch my dad get angry.
Yeah, I'll have a Frutella, thank you.
And then that teacher was always nice to me from that point onward. And I felt like a mob wife. I felt like, yeah, that's right. Even as a 6-year-old, I remember thinking, I'm bulletproof.
Yeah.
You can't do anything now.
I would have taken a cannon to the teacher the next day and just opened it in her face. Just like, yeah, you can't do anything. So you're actually the first guest I've had on then that went to a private school. So when you said like dinner hall, like I might just be being a bit daft here, but are the school dinners of higher quality? Do you have like, you know, like a venison on the go?
That's hilarious.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, because I went to a school where I went to a school in a village. There was 94 kids in the school, and it was quite common if a few kids had like olives in the lunchbox and stuff like that. So, you know, the fact you say like a private school, I don't know, you know.
Fancy.
Yeah, like Parma ram in your lunchbox.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't Tudors. So we had normal like kids food.
Don't forget your rough, Daisy.
I did at my first school though genuinely have a boater, which I think is quite
a what?
You know a boater hat. It's like a straw hat.
I honestly first thought you arrived to school on a boat. I thought, bloody hell, how bushy, he's got a moat. Just arriving, ahoy everybody. But a boater hat, right? Okay, like a little wicker one.
Yeah,
okay.
A little hat. So it was, it was quite. The thing is, I think growing up and going to private school, when you're a child, you don't understand privilege because you don't know everyone else is not the same. Like, because how would you? You don't have a frame of reference.
Yeah.
And then I remember going to university and meeting people who hadn't gone to private schools, and I would just say these really clanging remarks. I remember because I did drama in my first year of uni, and then I switched to communications and media because obviously I wanted a degree that people would take more seriously. But I remember this girl in my drama class saying that she'd done her A-level production in the school canteen. And I was like, oh, but why would you do it in a canteen? Like, I just couldn't get my head around it. And it was because it was the biggest space in her school. And she was like, where did you do yours? And I was like, oh, well, in the theatre. And I never even occurred to me that having a full purpose-built theatre in your school was a bit weird. Do you know what I mean? And honestly, as an adult, it was a really odd moment when you have to go, oh my God, I'm one of those people.
If I'd seen a kid in a wicker hat, I would have been like, whoa. Never mind if they've got red curtains and rake seats. Right? But you sent me another one as well. Was it in that a private school then that the lad jumped out the window?
Yes, that was in my senior school. So I loved this kid. I didn't know him well. I won't say his name. I'll call him, just for the benefit of the story, I'll call him Tom, but that wasn't his name. But basically, Tom just did this extraordinary thing because we were all sat in the classroom waiting for the lesson, and he literally, with no like fuss, just walked to the back. It was an old building, walked to the back of the room, opened up this old window and just climbed onto it, and before anyone had time to stop him, just jumped out the window. And then it was only like sort of 8 feet down, so he didn't really hurt himself. He just sort of stumbled at the bottom, turned around and went, perfect landing. Then walked back up the stairs, sat back in his seat as if nothing had happened. The teacher came in and just started the lesson. It was the most surreal. And we're all like, we don't want to tell on him, but we're all looking at each other like, what just happened? It was the oddest thing, but I loved him for it because I thought, fuck, it's a long life. He wanted to jump out the window and just just to do it. And I thought, well,
So
all right then.
he jumps out the window, and then his little boat has just floated down, and he's caught it. Perfect landing.
Perfect landing. And then he just came back in again.
So he wasn't a troublemaker, that lad?
No, the opposite. He was really quiet. He was really clever. Like he was like straight A, proper smart. He just was quite quiet, and for whatever reason, he just wanted to jump out the window.
I'm about to say, yeah. If you were in my school and you jumped out the window, you weren't in the top set. You were not in the top set. I had a teacher that threatened to throw a boy out of a window, and he was I nearly said his name. He was a South African teacher, and he said to my mate Jake, who was like head down on the desk, he lifted Jake's head up and he went, "You better abort your parachute, because I'm going to throw you out the window." We're all sat there like, "Go on, do it." He was great though. He'd like, do a bit of Pythagoras and then tell us about like apartheid and how he would like be in all these riots. He was a black guy and he was like fascinating fellow, but yeah, he obviously knew how to keep us on task. He was like, "We'll do a bit of this and then I'll tell you about when I petrol bombed the so and so." I was like, great. So they were my school days. But the context of the story that I've got for you today, it centres around a lad who does have a bit of a behaviour problem, right? So when you said that lad jumped out the window, I feel like the kid that features in this story would eat him alive. I'll get cracking with it. Hello, the staff room. For the past 5 years, I've worked with little knobheads in various roles. I don't despise my job, but it wasn't what I'd planned for in life. I left university...
Sorry, can I just pause you there? Who's writing this? Is this a teacher?
Yeah.
So funny. Carry on.
Okay. I don't despise my job, but it wasn't what I planned in life. I left I left university with a dream of becoming an actor, but after 6 glittering years of rejection, I hung up my unitard and went into teaching, as it meant I could move out of my parents' house. As I say, it wasn't the career I wanted, but it's better than hearing my parents shagging.
I like this person already.
I know.
I also like how you pronounce the word unitard.
Unitard. How do you pronounce it?
No, just the way you said it, mate. It just sounded like a different word. But carry on.
Okay. As I say, dyslexic. I don't hide behind it. All right.
Oh, sorry, and I know that. So that was rude.
You're absolutely fine. Don't worry. But when I first read that first section there, I almost think that if I was in my mid-30s, is this person? Well, I do know they're in the 30s. If I was in my 20s, right, and living at my parents' house, I feel like my mum and dad would definitely up the amount of shagging just to push me out of the house. Right?
Yeah.
So, I feel like maybe that may have been their tactic all along. It was like, if we start being louder, he will or they will get their shit together and get out of the house. Yeah. So also as well, do you not think that shag is like a very British word?
Properly British word.
Like it wouldn't work in any, like, even if an American said it, I don't think it would sound right. But no. It's a very I think of Austin Powers. That's just like the go-to. But they've continued. I've worked in SEN environments and enjoyed this type of teaching, as it means anything can happen in the classroom. You've always got to be looking over your shoulder just in case one of them tries it. Do you know what SEN environments are?
Special education needs.
Oh, look at you, on the ball.
Yeah.
For the uninitiated, that's what it means, right? On this one occasion, I was working at a kids club with another teacher called Steve, who worked mainly alongside a young autistic lad called Teddy, who now required 2-to-1 assistance because he could be quite a handful at times. Although he was only a teenager, he was built like a brick shithouse, and Steve had assured me he was a sweet lad at heart, but does have a temper worse than the Kray twins. And he's continued. Before Teddy arrived, Steve had said to me, both of us will need to be either side of him at all times, just in case he goes into Ronnie and Reggie mode. And don't get too close to him because he can bite. Right. Now, I can relate to this because I've been in similar situations. So I wasn't nervous, as I'd dealt with kids like this before, and I'd done team teach training, which is essentially like Ofsted's way of self-defense. Now, do you know what team teach is?
No, but it's just the idea that you have to learn self-defense as a teacher is silly. But also, this person shouldn't be a teacher. Like, my advice to them is leave the profession, because there's not an undertone of kindness in this story that I'm enjoying. It's very kind of, because my dreams ended, I'm now teaching knobheads. I don't think that's like the spirit you should enter the profession. This man or woman is seconds away from making a 6-year-old cry on a dining room table. And I just think, on behalf of all former children that had horrible teachers, just don't be a teacher.
I've got to say, I think there's quite a lot of teachers, though, that end up in teaching as if to be like, it'll do.
Yeah, I do. And some of them, though, because when I look back, some teachers are bitter motherfuckers. And I think if you're in teaching and you think, I just hate children, you're in the wrong job. Find another job.
I get that.
Do something else.
I think as well,
Sorry.
they can
Go
like,
on.
you know, kids can, what's it called, chip away at you. You know what I mean? You can start off like full of pizzazz, but come, 10 to 3, you're just like, Jesus Christ.
I'm not blaming the children, Harry. No, I'm not going there. I'm very much, I know this is a podcast that teachers like, so I can't slag off teachers generally. Some are excellent. As I've said, I had one I loved, but the others, 6-year-old me, I was just drinking a can of lemonade. Okay. It wasn't provoked.
I get your point. Because the team teach stuff, though, I had to do that. So basically, I was working in PRUs, right, which is like a pupil referral unit, and they're for kids that have been kicked out of school, and they have to keep them in this like little unit, and it's quite intense. But when I first went to go and work in them, I'd not done any team teach. I didn't know it existed, and after a few weeks and whatnot being there, I got told, you should probably go and do this training, by the way, just in case, you get attacked. And I was like, right, okay. So I went and did this, I think it was a day. It was definitely, I don't think it was 2 days, definitely a full day. But I had to go to this school with a load of other people to basically learn how to restrain children, okay? But we were like restraining each other. So I remember going into this, and it was a school in the half term as well. So like there's no kids there, but you're sat in a room where kids have done like finger paintings and stuff. So it all feels quite, happy. But then you've got an instructor that's like, children will bite, right? So and that was one of the questions they asked. They said, what do you do if a child bites you? And I didn't know the answer, so I just like sat there in the silence. And after about 5 seconds, no one had said anything, and the guy just said, "You lean into it, right? You lean into the bite." And I didn't know that was apparently if you lean into a bite, right? There's like a bodily function where the eyes bulge of the person that's biting you, and at that point that they bulge, you can take your arm away. Okay, I didn't know that, but I started writing jokes about this a couple of years ago and said on stage at a gig in Liverpool, what I just said to you there. I walked into this room and this guy said, what do you do if a child bites you? And this Scouse woman just went, bite him back. And I was like, ooh, I don't feel like you've got full custody of your kids. But so you have to do all these like techniques. So biting's one of them. You have a thing called a caring C, which is essentially this. Because if you do that, apparently you're going to leave bruises on someone's. But if you like cup your hand.
So if you cup your hand, just because you just described that visually, which for a podcast I imagine is not very satisfactory.
Imagine picking up a pint with your fingers, all your fingers together, but you're doing that around a child's arm. But if you spread your fingers, they say you can leave a bruise. But if you do that, you're less likely to. But that's known as a caring C, right? And I don't think
we should be calling that a caring C.
I know especially when they're talking about like you can be kicked, spat, bite, and all. Just remember your caring Cs. That's what you want to take away from today. I feel like if a kid's coming at me, regardless of what they've got in their hands, I'm not going to be thinking, standing there like a crab with me caring C's ready to rock and roll.
But I don't know what the alternative is, because I think I would just let they're only children. What are they going to do?
I had a lad come at me with a screwdriver. So,
well, all right. I mean, okay, maybe if they weaponised,
I'll give him compliments. Hey, fantastic striking technique.
I'm such a hippie. I'm not useful in these discussions because I'm like, just give them a bit of attention, Harry. That's what they need. That's why they got the screwdriver. Support them.
Yeah, well, I was blown away by the fact you have to do all of this stuff, right? So that's what he means when they've said, I've had my team teach training. So They've continued. However, in my experience, kids tend to fight by their own rules. I was once on playground duty when everything went into a riot and one kid gave me a nipple twister, but that is a story for another day.
I lost this person. Do I know whether this person's male or female? I'm guessing male.
Yeah.
Because of just the context, a nipple twister. He lost me when he's called them knobheads, and now I'm on the kids' side, and I'm like, well, what did you do? Why? Okay, they gave you a nipple twister. Did you start it? What did you do? Did you say something? I don't know.
It's unnecessary nipple twister. That's like, a bit.
Is it
A bit.
I don't know. We don't know all the facts here. I'm playing devil's advocate. He could have said something. I don't know. I reread my old school reports recently, and because I just found them.
Yeah.
And what I realised is that teachers are knobheads. Some of them are really passive aggressive, and I just think that maybe he started it. Maybe he did it quietly. I had a crafts teacher who said that I was 6, lacked imagination and flair.
That was a rough year for you at age 6, wasn't it?
It really was a rough year. She said I lacked originality and what was it? Lacked imagination, lacked originality. Couldn't see when I was looking and failed to take feedback in a good-natured way. And I thought, well, fucking hell, I mean, you ripped me apart. I can imagine I didn't take it in a very good-natured way.
I can imagine you, the only 6-year-old on the playground with like a packet of Lambert and Bottler all jaded. Just like, no, I'm not playing tag. All right.
But yeah, so I playing devil's advocate with this teacher. I suspect he started it, Harry.
Right.
I suspect he deserved the nipple cripple, and I applaud that child for taking matters into their own hands.
I like the fact that was just a line within there said a story for another day, but you've already just written them off like bastard.
Oh, is that not even his whole story?
No,
Sorry, right.
There's more to this.
I'll suspend my disbelief. I'll shut up for a bit. Let's hear it.
They've said, so Steve pointed out Teddy soon as he arrived, and to be honest, it wasn't hard to spot him. He stuck out like a sore thumb from the other kids, mainly because he looked like he had 4 himself, plus a mortgage, and was on his 3rd marriage. So he's obviously quite like a big lad who's, well-developed. The morning we spent with Teddy the man-child had been great and without incident. He was taking a right shine to me, which Steve said was rare because he never usually warms to new faces. Little did I know what was to come. That afternoon, Steve had organised a trip to the swimming pool, one of Teddy's favourite places. I wasn't that keen myself because I couldn't help but think of the amount of piss floating around in there, which I feel like if I was getting into that, I would have the same concerns. Kids and swimming pools, you know what I mean? They're quite lazy, aren't they? They'll just go where they want. Right, so while Teddy was changing, Steve had a quiet word with me and said, Teddy can get a little excited when he's in the pool. And if he kicks off, just don't say no, as it's a trigger word and will only encourage him more. Before I could ask any specifics like, what exactly does that mean, Teddy came flying out the cubicle in his Speedos and with a big splash jumped into the empty swimming pool. I'll watch from the side, said Steve. The words a little excited rattled in my head. What the actual fuck had I gotten myself into here, I thought, as I stepped slowly into the pool, shitting myself at the grand spectacle of Teddy thrashing around like a great white shark that had gone through puberty. So Teddy whipped the water with one of them foam noodle things, which I remember from my childhood as being called a woggle. Do people still call them woggles? Seems dodgy. Now, I can remember them being called woggles, but I do know they're now called noodles. You know what I'm on about here? It's like a big foam.
Noodle. Yeah.
But it does seem very dodgy that I can definitely remember them being advertised as that in a shop. But that does seem, a bit, just wrong. So the snap crack sound of the noodle as it hit the water made me so nervous a little bit of wee came out, adding to the existing cocktail of pool piss. I just hoped that the Speedo wearing jaws couldn't smell my fear. The tension between us built as I tried to start a game of catch, and it didn't take Teddy long to turn it into target practice, with the target being my head. I wanted to say no, but I knew that would only make things worse, so instead I dodged and ducked underwater to avoid the aerial bombardment. In hindsight, I would have dealt with it differently and have said something along the lines of, "Oi, stop throwing the balls at me fucking head, will you?" But Steve looked on like this was completely normal, so I followed suit. So you see what I mean? I feel like it's building. You know what I mean? Like Teddy,
Right.
as he said,
I'm still very much firmly on Teddy's side. This guy sounds like a dickhead. I mean, he describes a child with special education needs as like a great white shark, and like all of this is pejorative. And I think children sense when you don't like them. And this man sounds mean. So I hope Teddy hit him on the head. I hope it hurt. I hope he's got a scar that made him less attractive as a person to go with his horrible, horrible heart. There's no nicety in this story, Harry.
Well, all the stories I've had have been very different, but I feel like...
Well, this one is not my favourite. I don't like this man, and I'm saying it, and he can tweet me and tell me all his thoughts. Yeah. I've never had an argument on the internet. Still time.
Well, I've not even got to the end of the story yet, so I feel like come the end, you might like him.
Let's see. See if he redeems himself.
Okay, so after about 5 minutes of me and Teddy reenacting Dunkirk, all hell broke loose. Out of nowhere, Teddy went into Ronnie and Reggie mode. He jumped out of the pool and quickly grabbed hold of a 10-foot cleaning pole and then plunged back into the pool and stood between me and the steps, waving the pole over his head. Sadly, my team teach training didn't provide any guidance on what to do when dealing with a pissed-off Poseidon. The thought of being drowned by Teddy flashed across my mind. Steve, from the edge of the pool, was trying to remind Teddy that I was friendly, but he wasn't having any of it. He launched the pole at Steve and then made a beeline for me as he swam underwater. In a moment of panic, I tried to run away in water that was up to my chest, so I wasn't going anywhere quick. Not knowing what Teddy was going to do to me, as a 30-year-old man filled with fear, I emptied my bladder into the pool and a yellow cloud floated around me. I wasn't sure where Teddy would pop up or if I'd ever see my family again. But then Teddy burst up from the water about 3 feet from where I was standing and shouted, "You've pissed." I've never felt more relief in my entire life than when Teddy got out of the pool in disgust. And I can honestly say that yellow cloud of fear saved my life. I've not seen Teddy since that day, and God knows what he's getting up to now, but I wish him all the best. P.S. I often laugh to myself about the fact that my teaching career has offered me more drama than my acting career ever could. And that's the end.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's a listener to your podcast, so I want to be nice to him.
Yeah, I think you can say what you want. I mean,
I think no. But I think that entire situation was him and his colleagues' fault, because if the student had an additional need and needed more, they could have managed that situation better. Why was the child able to reach a pole? Like, you could have, they could have removed those things. They could have made Teddy feel...
kind of preempted it. And
they could have preempted all of that. They could have made him feel more secure. They could have made him understand what was going to happen long before they were by the swimming pool. He just sounds like he wasn't, know...
Maybe it's Steve that's the bad guy in this situation. You know what I mean? Because
Steve doesn't sound better, to be fair. And
Steve works with him regularly. That's the thing. Go on.
I think Steve could have done more to not throw him in the deep end, but ultimately, I only would really care about the well-being of the child. And this makes me sound, this isn't funny, is it? Because it makes me sound just like, I don't know, childlike. I'm just like, I sound like Ofsted. I'm like, let's talk about the incident, shall we?
Stop the episode, Harry. Got it. We're no, you're allowed to say whatever you want. Because I've had, on episode 3 I had a story from a teacher about a head teacher that they work with that Josh Jones was the guest on. So if you're not listening to it, go and listen, because it is very good. But the head teacher it was an 8-year-old stand outside in the snow with no shoes on as punishment. And this was only in like the last 5 years.
Yeah, well, because he's a psychopath. Like, that's... If there's ever an argument between a child and an adult, I'm on the child's side, because who's the fucking adult? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I do get that. But mind you, the situations that I've been in where, like, the kid is in the wrong, and no matter how many different ways you try and explain that, in a way that is understanding. If someone is just like, no, fuck you, I can't be bothered. My approach is like, all right, well, I'm not going to bother now. So, I'll just let you tire yourself out. But I feel like within this, the person that so Steve, who works with Teddy, obviously has some rapport with him, right?
Right.
So they know what Teddy's like, because when it all breaks loose, they're trying to remind Teddy that the new person is a friendly face, and Teddy even warms to him. So I don't know, maybe it seems like he's had a hot 5 minutes. He's just switched and gone into, as he said, Ronnie and Reggie mode.
I don't like the expression Ronnie and Reggie mode. Like, I think this is, I don't understand how this man's a fucking teacher. He just sounds, what training did he, I know it's because it's a podcast and obviously he wouldn't say that in like a meeting, but I just...
Yeah, all right, everybody. We're just going to have a chat today about some of the behaviour policies.
When they go all fucking Ronnie and Reggie. Like, who is this man? I don't... Okay. I'm not a fan, but that's fine. I don't have to be.
Okay. So I suppose this has already answered my question. With each guest, I've been asking teacher or the student, what side are you on?
I mean, clearly student.
I feel like you're heavily in the camp of the student.
I was sort of celebrating when Teddy got a weapon. When you were like, oh, and then he picked up a pole. I was like, fucking good for hit the prick. Like, he's in the wrong, Teddy. You hit him.
What I like most is the fact that when I first started this read, after the first line, when I said, I've worked with little knobheads in various roles, and then I started with, I don't despise my job, and you went, can I just stop you? This person sounds really funny.
But they sounded funny because in the start they had the sort of hopelessness, which I find that endearing. That sort of vulnerability where you go, oh, I wanted to be an actor and it didn't work out, and then you can have a little laugh at yourself. I'm fine with that. But then when that hopelessness becomes bitterness, that's when I lose my patience with people, because I had a lot of hopeless teachers that I had time for. I had a teacher who always stank of alcohol, and one sports day threw the javelins back. So like where us kids were stood, he started throwing the javelins instead of picking them up and just returning them, just to save time, chucking a spear near small children. And the other teacher had to call him by his Christian name. So I won't say his real name, but the other teacher was like, Nigel, put that down. And I liked as a teacher because I thought, bless him, he's just trying his best. He's had a few lagers, he's throwing a spear at a teenager.
A tinny in one hand, spear in the other, shouting Sharon as he throws it.
And that I'm fine with. If you're just a bit useless, but if you're mean-spirited, you're not my people.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Mind you, though, I feel like you would hate my dad.
You've told me stories about your dad in writing group, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure we would gel.
I have distinct memories of. He's just chilled out with age, but he was like a lovable psycho when I was growing up. That's the thing. Yeah. So I don't know, I read this and I wasn't put off by the teacher because my dad spoke to me like I was a 45-year-old man from the age of 9. So there was a lot of character building, as my dad would say. Like that, I wrote a joke in lockdown about the fact that when we used to go to the beach, my dad wasn't interested in building sandcastles. He was more interested in building character. Right? Because that's the type of man he is. And now, when I bring up these incidents and like mention it, he's like, he weren't that bad. But it's just like day and night. But I feel like, although you're saying the student, I feel like the teacher, it's not being disparaging about Teddy. I feel they've genuinely feared for their life. But at the same time, I've been in situations...
I'm a bit sympathetic to. A bit. Little bit.
A little bit, right? Okay, so you'd wanted to survive, but get a few bumps and lumps along the way.
Yeah, I think it's because, so in context, when I was at uni, I volunteered with children with special educational needs, teaching drama. Yep. And I have been with children when they've had a meltdown and been what would have been perceived as aggressive, but they're just children. And actually, if it's handled right, you can, maybe it's difficult in water, but like, I just think I've never actually felt afraid, and I'm a girl. So I'm like, well, you're a 30-year-old man. Just, just
grow up
a bit, handle yourself better. Like, do you know what I mean?
I'm with you. I suppose as well, because you've worked with people, as have I. I've worked with people in them type of environments. It's a scale, right? And did you see, this was a few years ago now, but there was a 17-year-old who threw a 6-year-old off the top of the Tate in London? Did you see about this?
Well, obviously, I'm not endorsing that, Harry.
Yeah, no. But the point I put,
there is a limit. I don't go, well, he was just expressing himself.
Yeah, you can throw a pole, but not a tourist. All right.
Yeah, yeah, that's my line. Don't throw children, obviously.
But they've not specified within this, like, autism's a scale, right? And like, I get that this person might have been very mild. It's like going to Nando's,
Yeah.
Like red hot or lemon and herb. And I don't know where this person has fallen on it. But if they've snapped like that, I think they must be relatively, if you're requiring 2-to-1 assistance, it must be pretty severe.
Right.
So I feel like they've genuinely feared for what's gone on, but they're not like, I don't think they dislike the kid. You know what I mean? They've said they wish him all the best.
I mean, that was an afterthought, wasn't it? I didn't take to that, whoever wrote that story. I didn't like them, Harry, I'll be honest. It's funny, I never used to be this honest because I used to want to be liked, but then I think what happened in lockdown was I stopped caring. I've changed this past year, and I'm just going to say it how I think.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm not gonna take it away from you at all. It's a free podcast, you know what I mean? So you're in the camp of the student.
Yeah, strongly with the student there.
Who knows what Teddy's doing? It'd be good to hear from Teddy. I can't imagine that's their real name either.
I hope they've given them a false name. I'm going to imagine
they've changed the name up as Steve. So all the names that I've had come through have.
You've changed the names though, haven't you?
No one said they've been like a real one. But okay, so teacher the student, you're on the student. I'm 50-50, but I feel like I've got sympathy for the teacher in that situation.
To be fair though, Harry, and I don't want to throw stones here, you just described the autism spectrum as if it's the same as Nando's. So with love to you, Harry, I don't feel I don't know
where I sit on that. But that's what I mean.
I don't know whether you need slightly more training in your understanding of Sen, but
Harry, you can't go out there and just tell him he's red hot, right? Okay.
No, that's not appropriate. No. And I'm amazed I'm the first person to tell you this on a comedy podcast. Obviously, Nando scale is not how we describe the autism spectrum.
No, because it's a big spectrum as well, though.
That's not why.
Maybe they should turn it in that direction and call it, that we'll just simplify it down,
Okay. But, we'll see. Let's see if they take that on board.
I feel like your reaction here, I can see doors in my career just closing. You've just put your head in your hands like, oh my God, he's still talking. He's still going. You're the first guest that actually made me think, have I gone too far in this,
No, you haven't.
But no, thank you very much for coming on. I don't know if there's anything you would like to plug.
I don't have. Oh, I had my own podcast for 2 seasons. We're not. They're still doing it, but this isn't a good plug. But basically, wait.
But they're still doing it. Was usurped.
No, I left. It was actually a scheduling thing more than anything. But it's called How to Survive Your Life, and there's 2 seasons up now, and it is a good podcast, and it's still running. So
okay,
I will fully endorse it.
How to Survive Your Life.
Yeah.
Sounds like the name of a rap album. I like it.
Yeah. It's not a lot of rap in it. It's just 3 women talking, really, but it's funny.
I'll have a listen to that. Sounds good because I like what's it with John? Is it John Robbins and Ellis?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
What's it called? This Is My Pain. This
Yeah,
How do
I've
you
heard,
cope? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So how to survive your life. I'm just writing that down. But yeah, I'll have a listen to that.
Lovely. Thank you for having me, Harry. Been fun.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. And I will see you at the end of the month, but I'll see you on Monday as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the teacher that sent that story in. I mean, I really enjoyed reading that, and it was also fun to see Daisy's reaction because I think she's the first guest I've had on who's really made her feelings known about the teacher. So that was good fun. But yeah, thank you very much for sending your story in. I think that made for a very fun episode, and we both got a lot off our chest, especially Daisy. For next week's episode, I've got Jamie Hutchinson coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I love Jamie to death. Me and him have done loads of gigs together and quite a few car shares. And I can distinctively remember him calling me a Tory because I had seedy bread as part of my sandwich, which he looked down upon. I was like, I don't eat white bread, mate. You know, I throw that to ducks, right? I like a nice brown seedy bread. And as a result of that, he just labelled me as a Tory. So I'm excited to get him on the show because, yeah, he's always good fun to be around, Jamie. But the story we're going over is coming from a teacher about a school trip that they were on. And it's nice to have a bit of variation to the story. So, you know, if you're a teacher and you're thinking, I want to send a story in, but nothing is springing to mind, I'll just say, have a think about some themes like, I don't know, sports days that you can remember, whether it be school trips, exams, supply teachers, maybe an Ofsted visit. It doesn't just have to be about naughty schoolboys. And also, as well, they can't just all be, you know, boys that are like bad apples within schools. There's got to be, you know, a few girls that were tearaways. So that's my homework to teachers this week. If you've had a girl that you've ever taught who's been a bit of a nightmare, send me a story because I kind of want to level these out a bit because it seems as if all the ones I'm getting have come in from about boys being absolute, you know, nightmares to deal with. But it can't just always be fellas, right? In my experience, it tends to be boys more than girls, but you know what I mean. I've had one or two absolute nut jobs who are girls. So that's next week's episode. Me, Jamie Hutchinson, and a story about a school trip. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in and has been listening. I appreciate it as ever. But until next week, look after yourselves and take it easy. The Staff Room podcast is produced by Harry Stachini, artwork by Poppy Spinks, and the soundtrack by James McGraw.